in this election here. Unfortunately, Josh Fordyce was not able to join us. Before we begin, I want to extend a couple thank yous to those who helped make our event possible tonight. First, a huge thank you to the Woodstock Opera House for hosting us this evening. The venue is, of course, a cornerstone here on the Woodstock Square, and their team is always incredible to work with, whether it's for our monthly business owner meetings or the our large events like the awards gala or the Miss Woodstock Scholarship Pageant that's going to happen in May, or important community gatherings like this one. We, the Chamber, sincerely enjoy hosting events here and working with their terrific staff. So please join me in giving a warm round of applause for our friends here at the Woodstock Opera House. Secondly, we'd like to acknowledge the Northwest Herald for their support in helping to promote this event and also loaning us their reporter, Claire O'Brien, for moderating our event tonight. So we appreciate their help spreading the word to make sure that more members of our community have a good understanding of what's going on and can be engaged in the local processes. So with that, let's get started. Please join me in welcoming tonight's candidates, who I'll now bring to the stage. They're going to be seated in alphabetical order from audience left to right. So with that, your first candidate, Theo Dice. Next, Greg Hanson. Lou Ness. Tom Nierman. John Puzzo. And Bob Seegers. Finally, I'd like to welcome our moderator this evening, Claire O'Brien. Claire is a reporter with the Northwest Herald and has been with the paper since July of 2023. She focuses on Huntley, Lake in the Hills, Woodstock, and the McHenry County Board. She previously wrote for the Daily Illini and CU Citizens Access, writing about topics including Illinois sports and Champaign-Urbana news. Claire O'Brien, come to the stage. Candidates, thank you all for being here. Claire, the show is yours.
And with that, we'll move on to our questions. Each candidate is going to have a minute and a half, and it will be random order who goes first. And with that, our first question of the night is, Route 47 widening is expected to start soon. What is the City Council's role in working with businesses and residents on that project? And how should the city fund its expenses related to the project? Tom, you're first.
Well, Route 47 is coming. I think first thing we need to do is, as a city, is we need to support all the businesses along Route 47. Be it whether we waive some of the existing signage rules that are a little can be a little strict, so they can use a little more leeway with banners and make sure that they're visible and show that they're open during the construction. We need to work very closely with IDOT and their contractors to make sure they always have some sort of egress so they can get people into their businesses. I'd like to also work with farmers market so we can have some of these businesses have some opportunity to have space on the square on Saturdays during the farmers market. I think it's imperative we do whatever we can to help support all those local businesses, because it's going to be a long 2 years for them.
Thank you, Tom. Bob?
Yes, pretty much echo what Tom said. That the city staff has been developing a plan for communication, providing a resource for the businesses and a connection to the Illinois Department of Transportation. Regarding the second part of the question, how to fund, we had a substantial meeting at City Council last night where we have a plan to in which we can fund this project, but it is far from ideal. The however is myself with the mayor with other council members and city staff has been to Springfield. We are working with Rep. Bill Foster on the federal level, and we will continue to beat that drum to asking for assistance, because the cost of this project that the city knew about and planned for has gone up astronomically at no fault of the city's, all because of inflation, construction inflation, fueled by decisions made by our federal leaders. And so the fact of the matter is we do have a plan for funding it. the plan is not complete. We are hoping to improve that plan.
Thank you, Bob. Lou?
In the midst of any great effort that causes anxiety and chaos, the thing that makes the most difference to people is communication. Clear information, being in touch with the businesses, being responsive, making that a priority, letting them know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen, then we as elected people and staff have to make sure that they have all the information they need every step of the way, because as it's been stated, this is going to be a long and grueling process for everybody. So we can offer some of that support to them. As far as funding goes, this is a major project. It requires federal, state, and local dollars to make the whole project work. I was at City Council last night and heard the mayor say, if for whatever reason one of our partners, our stakeholders pull out, we will pay for the project somehow because it has to be done. It's way beyond time to widen 47. I think we all know that. So I would say to residents, to Route 47 business owners, stay informed, stay in touch, and that the business should do the same.
Thank you, Lou. Theo?
Yeah, I do want to echo Lou's point. Communication is key with this expansive project. We want to make sure that we are staying in touch with not just the businesses, but those who are driving on 47 every day. I am one of those people. I actually live on Route 47. So I am very excited for this expansion, as much as I dread the traffic, as I'm sure a lot of people in this room can relate to. With the funding going into this, it does sound like City Council is starting to form a plan, and I do look forward to being a part of that plan and seeing what we can do to further secure funding for our town and for this project, and maybe potentially for our businesses too. So I've got high hopes for us, and I'm hoping that the rest of you will join us on this ride too.
Thank you, Theo. John?
Well, I see a couple of plans that really need to be put into effect, such as the major truck traffic that comes through this area on 47. There needs to be an alternative route set up for them. And also, I've worked on construction sites for many, many years. And even though you have the roads being blocked off on one side and then the other side being open for one-way traffic, sometimes things happen and both sides of the road gets cut open. And so there has to be means of egress or another way of getting around those areas, which has got to be put into the plan. As far as financing it, well, we have a new federal government in office right now that's cutting everything. So I wouldn't count on getting grants from the federal government because they're cutting everything. So we're going to have to look at alternative means to come up with the money for this program.
Thank you, John. Greg?
8 years ago, I ran for mayor of Woodstock, and the question that I was asked was about Route 47 construction. And the question was about hard medians. 8 years later, we're still talking about that. And I would hope that the city, over an 8-year period span, would have a plan that was ready day one and be shovel ready. Obviously, they've had plenty of time every year to sort of redo the plan. It's not only going to affect 47, but it's going to affect neighborhoods. It's going to affect pass-through traffic. It will affect the value of everything here in town. I would have liked to have seen some traffic studies of where I think they're going to go through neighborhoods. I would have liked to seen some stop signs put up so that people in town could sort of develop a new pathway in which they were going to go, because there will be people who cut through Prairie Ridge and a couple of other places. And hopefully the city has prepared that and will be ready to go and will be proactive and not reactive. Most of the time we're reactive. Funding wise, funding is a funny thing these days. I agree with John. There's not a lot of opportunities, but I think that there are people who are indeed working on that at the state level. I appreciate those people. I hear positive things coming out of the state. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to just advance that project forward.
Thank you, Greg. And that brings us to our next question of the night. The city last year approved a redevelopment agreement for the diecast property and then canceled it after the developer backed out. And the city is currently looking for a new developer for the site. What should the city do with the diecast property? Greg?
Oh, you're coming back
Yeah.
to me.
Yep,
All
you're up.
right. Well, apparently we have nearly 28 plans that we have done over time period. So it would have probably been good to go back historically and look at what those plans are before starting to have somebody else come in and tell us basically the same thing that we've heard for years about the walkable community. We are a historic district, so a lot of things won't happen to the square itself. And we should treasure the fact that we are a historic district. I have been a big proponent of, maybe because we have not been successful in 25 years of getting anything built other than 10 townhomes, is that maybe we need to look locally and see what we can do on a local level. An economic development authority, someone who has the necessary skills to come in and market that and make something happen. And I think if you made something happen, then I think developers would line up. But a project that's been sort of stalled for 25 years doesn't give any developer great hope to do something. So it's a necessary thing. It's a land that is certainly underutilized and could be producing so much more revenue for the town.
Thank you, Greg. Theo?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would love to see on that property is a dog park. Not necessarily taking up the whole area, but if you want to generate interest for developers who want to see more people coming into the community, a dog park would be an excellent way to do that. We do have a dog park on Bull Valley, which is a very nice dog park, but if we had one in town, we could generate income through memberships, through renting it out for dog birthday parties. I know Crystal Lake and Carrie have had a lot of success with those. We could definitely generate income and interest by building a dog park, which would not be that expensive of a investment. That would be a fence that would not be as expensive as the one that was just put in around the police parking lot. It would be maybe a water fountain, maybe some shade structures, and a few benches. So that is what I would love to see happen there. It would be a great place for the community to continue to come together at. Could host adoption events and continue to build community interest and developer interest.
Thank you, Theo. Bob?
Yes. The city needs revenue growth, right? Just like any business, any charitable organization, any not-for-profit, a city needs revenue growth because the city, not unlike your own households, expenses are constantly going up. If we don't have revenue growth, then we are in a really bad position. So the fact of the matter is, what should the city do with the property? The city is really not in control of what happens to it. They select what happens to it, but it depends on what the investment world is willing to do on that property. I didn't vote for the plan, or didn't wish for the plan that we had that we just busted. However, that's the developer that came in and was willing to risk their money to develop that plan. So we got comfortable with it. What we're doing now is soliciting levels of interest for major developers. It's a very costly investment at the diecast property. And in order to garner that investment, we have to show that the property is interesting to investors. And so for me, what the city should do is continue to solicit developers, and our wants, or my wants specifically, would be mixed use housing in there, high density, walkability with lower levels of commercial uses that would support the people living there. Restaurants, cleaners, coffee shops.
Thank you, Bob.
convenience
You're out of
stores.
time. Sorry. Lou, you're next.
Wow. She like cracks that whip, doesn't she? Thank you, Claire. I was at the county board when the city applied for ARPA funds to fund the project at the die-cast site. It was well received. People were very excited about how the whole project would age out for people in our community. And then typically what you do is the developer goes to get tax credits at that moment, because affordable housing and workforce housing became a national issue. The tax credits became highly competitive and they lost their ranking through no fault of their own, just more people applying for tax credits than had ever tried before. Having said that, I do think a community like Woodstock needs new housing. And maybe we have to, I don't know. I've not been at the table with the city. I've looked at some of the other plans around the die-cast site. I'm sure they are thinking of some of the things that I'm thinking about in terms of how do we make this site work? How do we stage in different levels of income eligibility housing? How do we make it attractive to business? I would be interested, after I'm elected, to sit down and figure out what could be next for that site.
Thank you, Lou. Tom?
Okay, the last DICAT project with CHR, the Department of Housing ended up pulling some of the funds at the end, which made part of the project not feasible. They came back to the city and wanted to do a scaled down version or a lesser plan, and we as a council decided no, it wasn't enough for the site. We're moving forward at this point. We got an RFP out for bids, and it sounds like there's some pretty good interest coming on. What we are doing is we're not going for the smaller developers. We're going for some of the big guns. So hopefully they got deep enough pockets they can help fund this project and we can get it to work. What I'd like to see there is a definite mix of some affordable housing, some higher end housing, and retail, restaurants on the lower levels, just so make it just it's almost like its own community, kind of like the square two, so to speak. So it all becomes one big, vibrant area. So, and I think we can do that. It's just going to take a little time. We've taken enough time, but now we're going to move forward, but we're going to do it right. We're not just going to take the first thing that comes along at this point.
Thank you, Tom. John, you're up.
Well, I kind of agree with Tom as far as the usage of the property, but I think that we can market the property as a little area for seniors, just like it was originally this last one was. But along with the seniors living there, and it would be higher end senior programs, our homes, it would also be an assisted living program there, so that a developer could come in, build the assisted living program, have the higher end homes for the seniors, have little gardens for them, have places for a small mall. There's close to where they can go and do a little bit of shopping across from like El Niagara. And also because it's so close to the railroad, it's very attractive for people to come and visit the seniors and visit at the senior center, and also to, it's close to the square. So you could have shuttles from the assisted living, you could have shuttles from the other areas going to and from the square. And I think you could make it very, very attractive to the point where people would want to come from all other areas to live there.
Thank you, John. And with that, our next question. The City Council voted recently to authorize eminent domain proceedings for a parcel downtown next to the hotel site. Do you support using eminent domain in this case? And what is your stance on eminent domain in general? Lou, we'll start with you this time.
So I'm not at the table trying to get a hotel built. I'm not strongly in favor of eminent domain. I do respect individual property owner rights. People have a right to do what they want to do with their property. I don't think that as government, we should go in and take it away from them. I also know that the hotel is significantly important to not just our community, but people coming here as a destination center. This is one of the hardest calls you make as an elected person. I don't get to have my own opinion around this. I have to play a long game. I have to think about the future of Woodstock and what is best for the future of Woodstock, not the individual, because we're a community, but the future of Woodstock. If, in whatever way, in a vote, I was called to vote on this issue, to take eminent domain into the courts, because in the long term, it would serve the health and well-being of community. If that could be the Woodstock community, if that could be proven to me, I would probably support it.
Thank you, Lou. John, you're next.
Well, I think that a hotel right outside the square is a great idea. I do not, however, think that we should have bought the property that we did buy on the corner of Madison and Calhoun to be used as a carrot to bring somebody in to build a hotel there. I am definitely, absolutely against eminent domain. That's like, in my mind, theft. How can you take away something that, in 2 years' time could be worth significantly more than what they were offering you with the eminent domain? Because, it's going to take a while for whoever develops a hotel there to put it together. So I'm against eminent domain.
Thank you. Greg?
In its structure, eminent domain was for the public good. It was things like roads and sewer systems. At some point in time recently, it changed to be economic good for a city. That is a really hard red line. I am a building owner, and I'm not really sure that I would like, somebody might think that my building could be used for something better. I don't think that's really what the eminent domain laws were really about. It was for public good. It was for roads. It was for sewers. It was for basic things. I would also be remiss to remind people that that property was for sale many years before the individual bought it. It was actually sold for $150,000. I think this is part of my problem with the city, in that if you're a visionary thing, you are aware of all the properties that are for sale. I, as a business owner, know basically all the properties that are for sale around the square. It's in my best interest to know that. So while I think there needs to be a hotel, I'm not sure that in the end run, how much we pay for that piece of property will really recover.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes. There's no doubt that eminent domain tastes terrible when you have to use it, but the law was put in place for a reason. The city's use of eminent domain in this situation, I supported. The reason I supported is we tried negotiating in good faith with the landowner. We made offers, we didn't get responses. In this case, we're not taking an ongoing thriving business. We're taking a piece of vacant land, and it is for the betterment of the city and its residents, because it's not just for the hotel. We're adding parking. We've heard residents tell us for years about our parking situation. This is going to help that. That's one of the benefits to the city. So in this case, where we're not taking an ongoing business, the land is being taken at fair market value, that the landowner can take the proceeds and turn around and reinvest somewhere else without a tax consequence, gets extended time to do that. in this case, eminent domain was appropriate.
Thank you. Theo?
Absolutely. So yeah, I do agree that the use of eminent domain in this situation was justified. We've all driven past that property for a long time and seen it just be nothing. It wasn't bringing anything to this town. With the option of having a hotel there, we will see some more economic build here. We will see more people staying downtown, spending money at local businesses, and being able to immerse themselves in the heart of Woodstock, to continue to grow their love and encourage them to come back and start traditions here every year. It will also bring some relief to the other hotels in the area who can also be overburdened with people coming in for a Groundhog's Day, for the lighting of the square, for any other many of opportunities for Woodstock Pride Fest. It will be a good addition to this town, I believe.
Thank you. Tom?
Okay. Eminent domain should be used as the last resort, the last tool in your toolbox. And every situation is different. This one took a lot of deliberation. In fact, we had it up for vote and actually postponed the vote till another meeting because we had such heated discussion on it. There's a lot of background information here that obviously at this point we can't share with the general public. But there's been a lot of games and a few hidden things that in this situation, it was a hard vote to make. But at this point, we're in this situation, we are definitely justified in eminent domain. Doesn't mean that we're going to go take other buildings and other properties around town. It's just every situation you got to take for its own merits and its own situation.
Thank you. And with that, our next question. Woodstock is wrapping up its streets program this year. What should the city do to maintain the newly repaired roads, and what infrastructure projects should Woodstock invest in going forward? Bob, we'll start with you this time.
Okay. The number one reason I ran for city council 4 years ago was because of the roads. And it still remains the number one concern amongst all residents in Woodstock is the roads. I'm disappointed that we got caught up in the inflation and we didn't get the amount of road miles. We have roughly 135 road miles in Woodstock. We're through maybe 40 of the road miles. We have roads that we let go to failure condition. When you let them go to failure condition, they're just a lot more expensive to bring back to good operating condition. What I think we should do going forward is continue to focus on the roads. And that's not a popular opinion. And to me, roads are part of infrastructure, just like sewer and water. And the condition of our roads denigrated our property values, whether you like it or not. And I'm big on property values because your home is the single greatest investment most of you have in your lives. And when we denigrate the property value because we let the road condition go bad, to me, that's just not acceptable. I am a proponent of continuing to fix roads and finding a way to do it, even if it means that we have to take some of the niceties away in order to continue funding the road repairs.
Thank you, Bob. Lou, you're next.
I know that the roads project's goal was to improve a majority of the roads in Woodstock. And as Bob said, inflation ate into that. And so we didn't get as many roads repaired and fixed as we wanted to. Going forward, I think the city will have to decide how much money they're going to put to bring roads so they're drivable and they don't, so your car's not banging on the ground as you're driving down one of the side streets. And I think that it has to be priority. Once we fix them, we got to keep them in good shape. And really, that's a budget issue. I agree with Bob. Roads are a part of our infrastructure. They're not sexy, but you know when they're not working for you when you're driving down the road. And so I haven't seen the 2026 budget, and I don't know what the plan for 2027 is. But I do know there is a public workshop coming up, and that will be one of my questions.
Thank you, Lou. John, your turn.
The thing that really gets me about the roads is the fact that over the last 4 or 5 years, we have increased the amount of people that are in administrative posts in the city of Woodstock. And then in so doing so, we did not increase the amount of workers that go out there and work on these streets. I thought there was only like 22 miles of streets plus and growing, but you've got a skeleton crew of 12 to 13 people that are fixing all these, repairing all these roads or these bad spots. When we do these major things like Pleasant Street, not only are you repairing the roads, but you're putting in water and sewer, and it's much greater than the cost of just redoing the roads. I think that we could tighten up our belts, get some more workers out there so that we don't have to worry about driving down a road that's like a gravel pit.
Thank you, John. Greg?
Well, we didn't get to this point because the roads all of a sudden became bad. We got to this point because for many years, the roads were ignored and nothing was done. We were a balanced budget, but we were balanced on the fact that we didn't do any of our work. And so now it comes time, and it's actually a big issue here. And we've took out a bond in order to do a specific amount of work. And we found out that the bond we took out could not do the amount of work because we were faced with other challenges, particularly in sewer and water. And so we're going to need to continue on. And I agree with John, is we're going to have to find ways to sort of prioritize that. And not only that, our sidewalks as well are horrible in this town. If you walk around like I do, you can see that we definitely need to do that. And I was surprised to find out we don't have a program for sidewalks. I assumed we had a program for sidewalks. Someone was at the last forum and talked about how they were willing to pay 50% if the city would pick up. And I was surprised and shocked to find out we don't have a sidewalk thing. I knew 27 years ago when I came here, I never had to really worry about the sidewalks in the square. I happen to live in the square, so that's why I'm speaking about the square. Every year they would come and they would power wash them and seal them. I haven't seen anybody in 15 years do anything like that. And the sidewalks on the square are crumbling. Walk down Main Street and see. And so when you get public funds, and I'm going to be really quick because they're going to cut me off, but I want to say this. When you do get grants and you use the grants to put on racing lights instead of fixing the sidewalks, this is where I have a problem with your priorities.
Thank you, Greg. Tom?
Okay, we got to look at this as the glass half full. We've actually knocked out in the last bunch of years 40 miles of road. We're going to knock another 10 miles out this year. That's 50 miles of new roads in the last 5 years. That's not bad. We have about 130 lane miles of road, so we made a good chunk in it. Not all our roads are bad. And really, if you start driving around, they're not near as bad as they used to be. They're in a whole lot better shape. But what we have to do is we have to start getting a better handle on preventative maintenance. We need to take care of them what we have now, so that way they last longer and we don't have to constantly be rebuilding the roads. That's a priority. And we can work towards some more grants, hopefully, to get it. But keep in mind, sometimes grants are specific. So if we get a grant for a certain item, we can't go and switch it and go use it for roads when the grant was for another purpose. So that's kind of one of the misnomers with the grants. But we've made pretty good progress at this point. If you really start driving around and look, the roads are not near as bad as they used to be. But we have work to do, and we will continue to push hard and keep working on them.
Thank you. Theo?
Yeah, so I used to live on Meadow Avenue here in Woodstock, and for years there was this huge pothole at the end of our driveway, and my mom would call the city almost monthly to talk to them and figure out why that pothole hadn't been filled. And it took a fair amount of years, but eventually that pothole was filled. So I'm very familiar with how far into disrepair our roads, and to Greg's point, our sidewalks have fallen. I have a dog that I walk up and down many sidewalks throughout Woodstock. And yeah, they're not ADA friendly. They are hazards for anyone who is walking with a cane or a walker. It is dangerous, frankly. And to see money that is supposed to be allocated towards the city's general funds go towards, for example, and I'm going to bring this up again, the fence surrounding the police parking lot, that was $63,000 that went into that fence that could have been allocated towards our roads and towards further development of sidewalks. So it is, something we need to focus on and really get our noses to the grindstone to figure out how to continue to improve our roads.
Thank you, Theo. And with that, our next question. There's been a lot of turnover with businesses inside the old courthouse since renovations and the building reopened in the fall of 2023. And the city-owned Opera House renovation project has fallen behind schedule, and the rec center is also being renovated. How should the city and the city council manage their city-owned assets? And this time, John, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, there's been an awful lot of people that have talked to me about the decisions that were made with the courthouse and the public house. The cost of $450,000 for that to keep them as tenants was ridiculous, and another $50,000 to take the city workers to pull out all the restaurant appliances, steam clean them, store them, and then reinstall them afterwards. You're talking $500,000 there. And then the reason being was that you weren't going to be able to find another quality restaurant. It's funny that we got the Squire within 2 or 3 months after they bailed. It's just, there's been a lot of complaints to me that the city was squandering money haphazardly. Now we have beer vats in the building and no brewery there. What's going to happen with those? Are they going to have to be pulled out? Are we going to have to get another brewery in there? I think they need to be much more judicious about who they get in there. And that's what we have an economic development department for.
Thank you, John. Tom?
Okay, on the old courthouse, we didn't have much of an alternative. We had to do it, if we didn't remodel that building, what would we do? Knock it down, make it a parking lot? We had to remodel it. It's a 167-year-old building. Have you guys ever remodeled something at your house and there's cost overruns? Now do it by a 167-year-old building. Were there some things we could have done better? Absolutely. We always are learning. As now with the Opera House, we are going in with a little bit different mindset and a little bit more open eyes, and we have not had as near a major cost and overruns. It's going a lot smoother. These are all things that have to be done one way or another to revitalize this town and keep it going. We do have to work better again on preventive maintenance on all the city buildings. I've been a big proponent of that since day one, and I will continue to push harder for that to happen. It's just sometimes the cost of doing business. And as for like Mobcraft going out of business, that was not any fault of the city. It was a big corporation or another corporation that came in to take over the Mobcraft, and they chose not to keep this operation open. They closed the doors on them. That's something that's out of our control as a landlord. That's, we vet them as best we can. And I think we did a pretty great job of doing a turnaround and getting the Squire on the square in that restaurant in a record time. So we learn from our mistakes and we just charge and move forward.
Thank you, Tom. Theo, you're next.
Yeah. So I think that the courthouse renovation was an incredibly important thing to do for our town. I have been in that building before renovation and many times after renovation. Before renovation, we did have the restaurant in the bottom, but we also had the Clay Workers Guild on the main floor of the building. There was not a lot of foot traffic in there. They now moved to Main Street and are are prospering over there. Afterwards, that renovation, we saw three companies come in there for the incubator program. We saw the records department, we saw Serena Sense, and we saw Makeity Make. The records department has moved on to a bigger space, which is the goal of the incubator project. Now for Serena Sense and Makeity Make, I know with Makeity Make, they had an issue where there's supposed to be someone else taking over that location to give Julie a break, and that unfortunately fell through, and she wasn't able to manage both locations by herself. With Serena Sense, I'm less familiar with why they left, but I know they're going back to their original location. It's a good investment in our community to have these programs open. And as for the where Mobcraft is, that building was empty for years before that, and hopefully it won't continue to be empty.
Thank you, Theo. Bob?
Okay, I am of the strong belief, I've stated it numerous times in the last 4 years, not one of your tax dollars should ever go to subsidize a private business. And it's for that reason that I was the sole vote against the public house ordeal, because I didn't think your tax dollars should go to subsidize a private business. With regards to the city managing their assets, I think the city does manage their assets actually pretty well. All the pain we went through and the mistakes of the old courthouse that quite frankly happened before Tom and I were even on the council, that's just part of the whole inflationary period and the unknowns. We've learned, the staff has learned from that. With regards specifically to managing tenants, at my urging, we've already made changes that will be successful going forward. I was of the belief that we weren't vetting our tenants well enough 3 years ago. That what we were doing is taking any tenant that we thought we wanted without vetting whether they were actually had a high degree of success rate in their past history, or a high degree of success of even being successful. So now we are taking a more balanced approach. We are having financial people look at the business plan. We are making tenants provide security in case they default to the city. And that doesn't mean we're going to be able to keep businesses longer. The city can't control the success of a business, but what we can do is manage the people we put in those places better. And that's what I've been pushing for.
Thank you, Bob. Greg?
It's hard to talk in 90 seconds about this issue, but perhaps maybe the best thing would be whether the city of Woodstock should be a landlord and whether that is a key function of government, Opera House aside. And going back to the rec center and other things, again, that's visioning of where you can see needs in the community that probably you should have jumped on parcels of land. That land that the rec center is on was probably a very sketchy purchase many years ago and has numerous problems. So again, it might be best to step back and say, is that the function of the city, is to be a landlord to tenants? The next thing I'd like to say is that while we have stopped giving money to people, we do offer subsidies in some other forms and fashions. And one thing I'd like to talk about before my time is up here is the entertainment district and the giving away of 22 parking spaces. Oh yes, they pay a minimal amount for those parking spaces. But last year there was just 2 restaurants that used it. I'm thinking you could extend the sidewalks and let people park. And also, I don't think that people are aware that on Fridays and Saturdays, the police department babysits that at a cost to the city. So I'm wondering that, yes, we do need to end subsidies, not only cash, but also valuable property in parking.
Thank you, Greg. Lou?
I want to remind you that the city of Woodstock took on the old courthouse to save it from destruction. It was falling apart. The dome was unsafe, falling. It was in terrible shape, had not been cared for years and years and years. And it is an old building, and it is a landmark in this community, in the historic preservation district. I live in a house that's 110 years old. I open a wall, I never know what I'm going to find. So I really get that. And I'm grateful that they saved the courthouse because it's amazing. Now, do I think it's a perfect retail space? I don't think so. I think the Squire is a good match for that. Probably a brewery where La Crêperie used to be. I was a strong supporter of the library project going into the courthouse, a community center. But, you know, I think you do learn by doing and learning from your mistakes. We need a strong recreation center. I'm a user of rec services and I love it. And I wish we had the money to build a state-of-the-art rec center and the land to do it on. But I know we don't. So we'll do what we can do. Unless you're all okay with having your property taxes go up significantly, which I doubt that very, very much. And the other thing is that the Opera House is a gem. I mean, these belong to the Square. They're ours, and we claim them as our historic legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. And with that, our next question. The City Council earlier this month approved starting on a new downtown master plan. What are you looking for the downtown to be in the future? And what information do you want to see in the downtown plan? And what role does surveillance play in downtown? First up, Greg.
Does what play?
Surveillance. Yes. Greg?
As I mentioned before, that we have done a number of downtown development plan studies, the last one done 5 years ago. And if you would like a list, someone made me a list of all the plans that have been done beforehand, going back to the Tesca in 1990. So it's certainly been studied a lot. Again, I will go back to the fact that it's a historic district, which makes it unique and special and would be dropped into any community and would be treasured just the way it is. We spend a lot of time trying to think about how we can change it. We did a lot of the master parks plan in which we thought we were going to move the bandstand and change things around. And yet it is perfect as it is. Definitely we can improve the bandstand to make it more handicap accessible, but I don't think we need to be looking at what we can change as well as much as we should probably be upkeeping it, doing more of the facade works, making sure that we never get into the position again like we were with the courthouse, in which the building was falling apart and the people who owned it were never held accountable for it. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that. And yet we clapped for them when we had the opening of the thing and left out the fact that the taxpayers really are the person who burdened that the most. So, and surveillance, well, I think we already know we live in a world that's like that now.
Thank you, Greg. Lou?
I know that I wasn't around for the conversation about why we needed to hire a consultant to do a master plan for the downtown.
Lou,
I do know.
Hang on 1 second. I think we lost them.
Oh.
Did we lose the audio guy? And the video
Testing.
went out?
Just a video, the audio is still.
Is it still up?
Now it's back.
Just
Is it? Okay.
Test,
mine is.
test.
All right, yeah.
It's not. Can you hear me?
I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Read the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. We'll start the time over.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. And she breaks out in song. The master plan for the downtown is more than business development. I did take a look at the purpose for doing another master plan, and it looks at housing, looks at parking, it looks at use of buildings. I think since COVID-19, all the plans have just kind of like everything stopped, and it's about taking another look. This is our asset, and I do understand as being on the Historical Preservation Commission, we talked about this at our meeting the other night. We want to know what's going to happen in this master plan, how it's going to affect the historical configuration of the square, and what our responsibility is going to be. I really don't know much more than that. As far as surveillance goes, I'm probably should keep my opinion to myself, but we have a very low crime rate in this city unless something's happened that I don't know about in the alleys. I'm not comfortable with the level of surveillance that we have on us as private citizens. I'm just not.
Thank you, Lou. Tom?
Okay. Development plans in general, really, we're hiring these professionals that are educated in their respective fields to give us guidance and direction as how we should take an area and develop it for the long term. The idea of doing a plan, it's costly up front, but it saves you money down the road because we're not redoing it and changing our minds as we go. In my world, we do landscape development plans. So if you want to do your backyard and you want a shed, a swimming pool, an outdoor kitchen, or whatever you might want, we put it all down on paper into a master plan so everybody knows what happens and where it goes. So that way, if it takes you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to build something, you're not having to move the shed because that's where the swimming pool was going or the horseshoe pit. It's just basically a grandiose scale for the downtown. We have to know where everything's going and what our plan is so everyone's rowing in the same direction. And as for surveillance around the square, as for anywhere, at this point, it's a sorry state, but yeah, we need to jack up our surveillance to kind of keep an eye on everything and protect our citizens. So.
Thank you, Tom. Bob?
Yes. First of all, I would like to state that there's more to Woodstock than just the downtown. That being said, however, I want to address a couple of things. First, the plan. When we're trying to bring potential investors into the die-cast site, remember I told you that's going to be $100, $200, $300 million of investment to complete a project like that. They want to know that the city's committed to a long-term plan. That is why we did the plan. Tom has it right. The plan is setting the stage for 10 years from now. And it also helps us attract investors because an investor doesn't want to come in here and plop $100, $200 million in, and then the city decides it's going to change the way it serves the residents and the value of their investment. With regards to surveillance specifically, look, we're in a tough world. If we don't have surveillance on the square, that benefits the police, by the way, and benefits the investigation process. If we don't have surveillance on the square, every other business you go to has surveillance. I don't care if it's Walmart or the gas station, the bank, anywhere you go. So that's the world we live in. It's unfortunate, but I've always been a supporter of giving the police all the tools they need to keep our city safe. And the fact that we have surveillance there in itself is a deterrent. But if it doesn't deter crime and we get to a position where they got to investigate, at least they have the ability to do it.
Thank you, Bob. John?
I grew up in this town, and I've gone through the evolution of this town from a small business, from a small community with a historical and small town flavor to a town of 27,000 or 25,000, however there is now. The square, it looks to me as being fantastic. The archway entrances, the stone on the walls, that added to it. But to change the whole format and move the bandstand, even considering it, is to me is ridiculous. Thousands of people came to this community in order to enjoy that flavor of the historical background. And hundreds of people moved to this city over the last 40 or 50 years so that they could become part of this community. I do believe that we definitely need to increase the surveillance, but as far as hiring more people to come in and tell us what to do, I've been to 3 different programs where we paid consultants to give our input. And what did that come to? $100,000, $200,000 for these consultants? We need to tighten up our belts if we're going to be doing road construction. We need to tighten up our belts if we're going to be doing other areas in the community. Because
Thank
like
you,
I
John.
said,
Sorry, you're out of time. Sorry. Theo?
Yeah. So I'll start off with surveillance. I don't think we need more of it. There are plenty of businesses on the square, and as someone who does work with security cameras on a daily basis, you can go into any of those businesses with a warrant and ask for the footage. We don't need specialized cameras on the square for a town where our crime rate is as low as it is. It seems like an unnecessary expense to me. As for a development plan, it does have its uses, but it does have its hindrances. It's always good to have an idea of the future and to know where we can possibly go and plan for that. But in the regards to the square itself, it seems like we already have a plan. We have ideas for a hotel. We know that we need to continue maintenance on our historic buildings and our yard lawns and create an accessible entry for the bandstand. With our development, it does have to be focused further out onto our roads and onto our sidewalks and so forth.
Thank you, Theo. And that brings us to our next question. Woodstock last year raised water and sewer rates, citing, among other things, EPA mandates. And the city could also be on the hook for millions of dollars in expenses if they're required to lower phosphorus discharge levels. How should the city council address water and sewer issues? Lou, we'll start with you this time.
Well, I know that unfunded mandates are a killer in any budget, whether it's the city or whether it's the county. They have to be followed. The city has to find a way to fund them. They pass those expenses on to us. Overall, Woodstock has pretty decent water. I really don't know what the PFAS rate is for our water here. I know that we haul our sludge out to Rockford to the landfill now because it has PFAS, which is a chemical residue that is in our water and our waste. I can't really adequately affect a good answer for you about this because I don't know what the cost is. I don't know what the increase is. I don't know what the impact to us is going to be. And so I feel like I really don't know how to answer that question satisfactorily.
Thank you, Lou. Theo?
So yeah, I do agree with Lou. With those mandates, we do have to obey them and find some way to make our lower our. I'm sorry. What was the?
Sorry, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, just the. I believe the word for the chemical that you used.
Oh, yeah, phosphorus discharge.
Phosphorus
levels.
discharge. Thank you. I just needed to hear it again so I could say it again. But it is a good thing to lower that. It'll impact the health overall of the community. And so if it is going to improve the health of the community, I don't see a downside with us having to pay more for it. It will affect this generation and every generation after that who now has even healthier drinking water than it already does. I drink the water from the tap here. I have not grown a third eye or anything like that. So I hope that it continues to be safe and that we are able to address issues as they come up.
Thank you, Theo. Bob?
Yeah, this is a sore subject for me because anything the city's done, it's we're victims of the federal and state EPA and the rules they're handling down. The city of Woodstock used to take its dry sludge from the sewer plant, give it to the farmers to spread on the farm fields for fertilizer, saving them money in providing a valuable outlet. Now we can't do that anymore because of the levels of phosphorus. So city had to buy a truck, hire a driver, and every day that truck takes a load to the landfill in Rockford, and we pay a fee to dump it instead of getting it taken away for nothing or virtually nothing. Now we bought a $400,000 truck and pay a man year round to haul our sludge to the landfill when it's adequate fertilizer. There's nothing the city can do but comply. But what I would suggest all you could do to be proactive is call your state representatives and your federal representatives and tell them, look, the EPA mandates, they're coming on the backs of the city, and they're forced down our throat with no funding. So they're not giving us, the federal or state governments are not giving any funds for us to bear the increase of the costs. So therefore, it has to come back into the water and sewer fees to you residents. And to me, it's terrible. Terrible.
Thank you, Bob. John?
I hate to cry wolf all the time, but once again, the federal government is not going to be giving out any handouts to anybody, to the state. So we can't look to the state to get grants. We can't look to the state to get any relief for this type of things. That's why we need to concentrate on working on our needs rather than our wants. And our needs are to have adequate, safe drinking water. And we have to do what we have to do. If that means there's going to have to be a tax increase, then we don't have a choice in the matter, because it's imperative. I mean, we also are talking about possibility of having to pay $8,000 per household to get the lead water pipes taken out. I mean, this money is going to come from somewhere. So where's that money coming from? Concentrate on the needs rather than the wants of this community. Tighten up our belt.
Thank you, John. Tom?
Okay. Yep, the unfunded mandates are coming. They're already here, and there will be more of them. All we can do is work and try to lobby with the state and the federal government to try back off them, or at least increase funding for it. We're going to continue to keep trying to talk to the other governing bodies. If we don't ask, we don't get. So we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep asking. There's other things we can do. We can push a little bit of development so we can spread the cost out over more people. We have capacity with our water, and we have a capacity with our sewer. So if we can increase some development and some growth, then we have more users to spread the cost out, to pass out over more people. So, and just be more efficient at what we do. Like Bob talked about, we bought the truck and we're hauling the sludge out. That was a very creative way to get rid of it instead of having to hire out another trucking company and stuff to take care of it. So that truck also we can use for other uses in the meantime when it's not hauling the sludge. So we just got to get creative, think a little out of the box, and keep pushing. That's all we can do.
Thank you, Tom. Greg?
I always hate to look backwards, but in a community that's 130 plus years old, I never thought that the sewer and water were a high priority. When I came here 27 years ago from Arlington Heights, and the TIF was about to be enacted in the downtown and on the diecast property, I asked then Derek Moorfield, who worked for the city, why sewer and water pipes weren't being dug up. That is usually the number one thing you do when you have a TIF district, is to change over to new materials. And I was told that I really didn't know what I was talking about, and that my experience in Arlington Heights as being part of the TIF district wasn't the same in Woodstock. And he was actually right. It wasn't the same as Woodstock. I worry about the water. I said in the forum at the library in 2019, we appeared on a list, much to my surprise when I was doing research, that Woodstock was one of the 25 worst waters in Illinois. I know that people have some really great concerns about the water. I wish that the city would publish quarterly the testing so that everyone can see that and be aware of that. I will personally say that that I have to end because I am being flashed red. I'm educatable and trainable too.
Thank you, Greg. And that brings us to our next question. The city council recently voted to take the max that it could under the property tax cap, but it has since abated some dollars. How should the city council balance the need for services with the realities of the tax base? And Bob, we'll start with you this time.
How should the city council balance?
The need for services with the realities of the tax base.
Okay, yeah, that's right in my wheelhouse, which is why I ran in the first place. I believe the city needs to focus a whole lot more on infrastructure going forward. Now, we survey the residents. We haven't done that very well. You might think it's a burden, but it's a blessing to people in city management because we can find out what's front and foremost on your mind. In my mind, we don't have enough money to cover everybody's wants. Money doesn't just fall out of the trees. And I am pretty sure none of you are up for just increasing your real estate taxes continually because of the wants. For me, you expect the infrastructure, sewer, water, roads, services, plowing, parks. You expect those things. To me, what we need to do is when we continually get handed mandates that do nothing but cost us more money and generate zero revenue that we're expected just to pass to the homeowners, what we have to do, in my opinion, so we don't raise tax rates, is cut out some of the fun stuff. That means when we ask you what you like and what you want us to do, the real fun stuff, if I'm trading that for infrastructure, I'm saying no. To me, we need the infrastructure. The roads, the sewers, the water, everything else. I'm being carded. So,
Thank you, Bob. Greg?
Core services is what city government is all about. It's nice to do fun things when you have a lot of money, but when you don't, you really have to prioritize. I'm not sure that Woodstock is the greatest person to prioritize. I see a lot of wasteful spending that is done. I pay really high taxes and don't receive any services that would be commensurate with that tax amount. And I'm sure many of you here tonight feel the same way that I do. So it comes down to priorities. And again, I'm sometimes amazed at what the priorities are. There has been a lot of new staff added to the city. You would expect that there would be an increase in revenue. That was the idea. Everything is an engine for revenue, and yet we don't necessarily see that happening. And if you've not had an opportunity to pick up this report, which is the popular annual financial report available at City Hall, this is the 2024 report. I think it's very interesting to see where our money is and where it's being spent, and I hope you'll take an opportunity. I know that there'll be another one published probably later this year. So take a look at that. I think you'll be greatly surprised. Take your highlighter out like I have, and you'll see that there are some things that maybe we could cut.
Thank you, Greg. Theo?
Yeah, with our tax rate versus our services, we do provide a good amount of services here in this town. I would love to see more. I am of the 40% in Woodstock who rents instead of owns. I'm not a landlord. I live in Woodstock full time. And so, my taxes come out of my landlord's money. Doesn't mean I'm not affected by it and that I cannot enjoy what we have here as we continue to grow and move forward. And I've lost the plot of this question. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat it?
Yeah. How should the city council balance the need for services with the realities of the tax base?
Yeah. So we are going to be seeing more people move into Woodstock. We did have the linear property approved. to be developed into townhomes and single-family houses. So we are going to see more people come in, more taxpayers to continue to promote for our services and for our necessities like water and sewer. And I'm getting the red flag too. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Tom?
Okay, keep in mind, we've taken PTEL this time, but there's some other years in the past we haven't done it. We've done a very good job of running, I think, the city pretty efficiently. We run a balanced budget every year. Keep in mind, on your tax bill, it's roughly, I think, 14% of your tax bill goes to the city of Woodstock. So that means if you got a $10,000 tax bill, all your city services you're getting, it's about $1,400 a year. $1,400 a year to get your roads plowed, your water, your toilets flush, things work. You got some great parks. Overall, I think we do a pretty cost-effective job for a city. If we want to keep that cost down, we're going to have to get some more growth. The more people, the more efficient our services can be. Doesn't mean you have to have massive, fast growth, but we do need to grow as a city. So I think those are some ways we can help work that balance.
Thank you. Lou?
I hate this question because no matter how I answer it, somebody's going to be unhappy with me. I just want to follow up on Tom's remark. 14% of your tax bill goes to Woodstock. 14%. 6% goes to the county. The lion's share of your tax bill goes to schools. So I want to know, what is waste? We have a $74 million budget. I think that's about where it's going to end up. If I look at staff, you want to say we're spending $500,000 on staff, that's such a tiny bit of the budget. You'd have to cut substantially someplace else if you wanted to transfer money. I'm just not sure what that would be because honestly, I've never looked that closely at the Woodstock budget. But I do remember going through this at the county with the county budget, nickel and diming the county budget in such a painfully awful way to cut. That has devastating effects on a community. So I would have to look at our city budget to actually see where is the money going before I said, oh, we have waste. I don't know that we have waste. I don't know that we have unnecessary services. No one's ever said that to me. So my time is up, thankfully.
Thank you, Lou. John?
You know, I totally agree 100% with Bob. Our infrastructure is the most vital thing that we have. We have to take care of those needs. We constantly are striving to increase the revenue that comes into this city, but we increase our TIF area. We offer tax incentives for people to come in. I'm saying that if they want to build in this country, in this city, we need to have them pay for their infrastructure first before they go into their developments. And we need to stop giving them any of these incentives until we get to the point where we can make sure that we are covered on all our infrastructure needs. It's time to tighten the belts. I keep saying that.
Thank you, John. I think we have time for one more question. So probably our final question of the evening. Woodstock's first dispensary is opening up. Do you support having dispensaries in town? Should the number of dispensaries in town be limited or should they be restricted to certain areas? Theo, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I work in Round Lake Beach. I have 2 dispensaries that I can look at every single day. They bring in a good amount of tax dollars because they are heavily taxed, as they should be. And it's not going to decrease the amount of marijuana we have in our town. If anything, it will mean that people are spending their money more here than going to Crystal Lake or Algonquin or any of the other surrounding towns. So it's money staying here in Woodstock. It's increasing our revenue. There is, I don't think we should have one on every corner, but we do not also want to have a monopoly here in Woodstock of just one dispensary. So another one would be nice, but as it is, we don't need to see substantial growth in that area.
Thank you, Theo. John, your turn.
Well, I always had a problem with legalized marijuana until I got really sick. And I had to use gummies because I couldn't sleep, because I was sick. So consequently, I've changed my thoughts about that. And if it brings revenue into the city through the tax base, I don't know how much it would be, because most of it goes to the state, I'm sure. There is many medical needs for it that are more and more happening all the time. When you have cancer, sometimes the only way you can get through the chemotherapy is with the gummies. I'm for it. I think we should have at least 3 in this town.
Thank you, John. Bob?
Yes, I voted for both of them in town. One is close to opening, and the other one, I'm not sure what's going on with it yet. It's very simple. I'm not a user, to tell you that right now. The however is, it's legal. It's legal in Illinois. And as Theo said, why should we watch them drive to Crystal Lake to spend their money there and not get tax revenue? That was number one. Number two is, does anyone remember how long the Burger King building was empty on Route 47? A couple of years, right? Guess what? They spent a lot of money. You know what that money they spent is the assessed value of that building we're generating an income from. Now we're going to generate income off of the sales tax revenue from the whatever products they're selling. I think it's foolish to argue against having it when it's legal in the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Bob. Lou?
I actually have no opinion about this at all. We sell liquor. If you're old enough, you can buy alcohol. If you're old enough, you can buy cigarettes. If you're old enough, you can gamble in restaurants. And if you're old enough, you can buy marijuana from a dispensary. I don't really see the difference at all.
Thank you, Lou. Greg?
As a former social service person, to profit on misery is something that is really very foreign to me. I understand that all of it is legal, and that's great. A lot of it creates societal ills, which are not being covered by the cost. They aren't cut into the thing very much, although the state does provide. So we have people who will use these services who probably need to be doing something better at their homes. I wouldn't want to eliminate it. I'd rather people grow marijuana at their home. I think I've said that to people on multiple occasions, because they would at least have a skill that they could develop in gardening. And there wouldn't be anybody else making a profit on that, including the state. It's just a hard thing to say, let's do something misery oriented that will change the life of a person and can make them economically poor. And somehow we should benefit as a city or as a state is just really quite out of my realm of that. But I understand that they are legal. It will add revenue, but I think it's a very sorry place to be.
Thank you, Greg. Tom?
Okay, it's legal, so my mindset is it's a free enterprise system. Let several of them open up, and the ones that provide the best service at the best price will survive. The ones that don't will fail. That's just economics 101. So I don't think we need to regulate it. It's a legal product. Just like the liquor stores, there's a handful of liquor stores in town. The ones that are decent survive. The ones that don't have closed. Gas stations, whatever. We don't have control. We don't normally have control over every business that opens in town. We hear a lot about, oh, we have so many Mexican restaurants in town. The city doesn't have a choice or a rule to say you can only have so many of them. So I don't know why we would do that with dispensaries.
Thank you, Tom. And then I think that brings us to our closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide their closing statement, and we'll go from my left all the way down to my right. So the opposite of the opening statements. So Bob, your turn.
Okay, I'm going to waste a couple of seconds of my 2 minutes to say some things that were said here tonight on this panel were factually incorrect. And so it's an advertisement for you guys to say the city records every single city council meeting, and anything you want to discuss, you want to look at the factual records on the expenditures of the city that were stated that were wrong. I would encourage you to go back to those recordings, type in that search bar, it'll take you right to that segment of the council, and you can get the facts as they were laid out to the council members. That being said, I'm not all doom and gloom on the city. I told you I need to spend money on the infrastructures, not the niceties. I'm for growth, right? Because growth, we can, don't quote me on this, but I think we can take 4,000 more homes or 5,000 more homes in the city without being forced to increase our sewer plant's capacity. All right. So that means it's like the schools only being 57% full. We can take more students without having to build schools. Same with our infrastructure. We do need to fix the roads. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't spend any money, but what I'm saying is the growth is really important to our city. And what you should vote for is a council that understands how to generate that growth, because that'll ultimately reduce the burden on your tax bill yourself. We should also listen to what residents want, right? And if residents want more than we have to provide, more than what the infrastructure is, then we should communicate better. We should be communicating better with you with regards to what our available funding is. The city does a good job of that, providing the budgets. They're complicated to read. But when we have budget hearings coming up on, I believe, in the next city council meeting, it'd be a good one for you to watch. You'll get a good understanding of how complicated and busy it is. I think my skills, I'm getting waved at. Okay. Please vote for anyone. Please vote.
Thank you, Bob. John?
I love God. I love my family. I love this country. And I love this city. This city's been my life for over 70 years. I've watched it grow. I've watched it change. I've seen a lot of great things that have happened in this community over the last few years. I mean, some of the grants that we've gotten that have improved the Opera House, the courthouse, the parks and everything is phenomenal. The truck that we bought for hauling the sludge saved us money. But at the same time, this is my town. This building is my building. I take it personal. I don't like graffiti. I don't like dirt. I don't like grime. I don't like crime. This is my town. And the people that live in this town, the citizens that live in this town, they're my people. So I'm looking out, I want to have somebody on the city council that's looking out for them in as far as fiscal responsibility and making sure that we are focusing on the infrastructure versus the wants. Yes, we need growth. We need growth. We need to fill the schools, the high schools that are half empty. We need to continue to build our businesses. But this community is more than just businesses. It's tenants, it's homeowners, it's getting close to my time. I'll end it.
You have a few more seconds.
I'm
You have
done.
more time. Sorry. Sorry. Is that all?
Yep.
Thank you, John. Tom?
All right, I'm going to talk fast so I don't run out of time. Seems to be an issue. I want to thank the chamber for putting on this event tonight. It's great to see everybody here. It's always good to see people that take an interest in our community. Over the last 4 years, we've done some pretty good strides. We've got 40 miles of new road. We completed the old courthouse. We got pickleball courts, tennis courts. We built a new parks maintenance building. We got that road between 47 where the BP is rebuilt. It's not our road, but we negotiated with the developer to get that done. In the next 4 years, there's more to go, and I'm going to stay committed till we get them. I want, 10 more miles of road done this year. We got an intergenerational playground that's about to be completed. We have a remodeled Opera House coming up that's going to be done. We are working to upgrade the rec center. We're going to get the Metro Rail Yard. Route 47 development's coming. We're hopefully getting a new hotel off the square, a Melissa O'Leary splash pad. These are all great things to come. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep making that stuff happen. And my goals, I'm going to hit this in because I didn't get in the beginning, is I want to keep working on road improvement. I want to enhance upkeep. We got to remain focused on our great parks and facilities. We can extend the service life of everything as long as, we do proper maintenance, which I'm going to push that we do. I want to also really push on code enforcement. While we made good improvements in this area, my number one phone calls and emails from people are looking at people's yards that aren't mowed, people living in campers and driveways, abandoned cars, just improper maintenance and people not caring for their properties. I don't think we have to be heavy-handed at this, but I think we need to really be diligent on it. And that goes back to the city's own properties. In order for us to do code enforcement, we got to lead by example, which means we need to step up the appearance and the maintenance of our own buildings and parks. So vote early, vote often. Chicago way.
Thank you, Tom. Lou?
On January 16th of 1967, I swore an oath. I raised my hand and swore an oath and was inducted into the United States Army. For a veteran, that oath never goes away. We live that every day, many of us, in service to our families, in service to our community, in service to our neighbors, to each other, that we commit to defending the Constitution of the United States of America and all those within our lands, to protect them from enemies, foreign and domestic. That's why I'm running for office, because I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love my community. I love Woodstock. I have a lot of respect for the people here and for the things that we do. But I have fear. I have fear that if we're not alert and awake and stalwart, we can be bowled over and not even know it. So I'm running because I'm a veteran. I'm your neighbor. I'm a smart, feisty woman, and I will serve you 100%.
Thank you, Lou. Greg?
This is the part of the program where I'm supposed to ask you to vote for me, but I would rather you much go out and vote for Woodstock, because Woodstock is so worth it. I love this town, and the people up here who are on this stage tonight are all people I know and are good people. You can't really go wrong, but just like a coat, some fit better than others. So if you like the direction the city is going, please vote for the incumbents. If you think that maybe we need a change in the way that we do things, then there are 5 other candidates from which you can choose from. It's really your choice. But please keep loving the city, and please go out and vote. Let's take it from a number 7 to maybe the next time around that we need 40 signatures to be on the ballot. Let's keep being involved. Thank you. And thanks to the Chamber and to the Northwest Herald, Claire and Brad, and for you who came out tonight and who are committed to making sure that you have a voice here and get to hear about the candidates. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Theo?
Hi. I'm not a politician. I didn't ever see myself going into politics, but I do have a passion for this town. I have a passion for everyone in this room. I don't want to come onto this council as someone being elevated to a position of power. I want to come on as your voice. I want to be a voice for everyone in Woodstock to be able to stop me at the Squire on the Square, in the Woodstock Mall, at Ethereal, and at the cinema, wherever, and tell me your thoughts and let me bring them here, bring them to the city council board, and continue to strive towards a better Woodstock with everyone's vision in mind.
Thank you, Theo. And with that, that concludes the forum. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thank you to the candidates for coming out and answering our questions. Have a good night.